Bring a Trailer podcast.
Well, so excited to be here with you guys at Bring a Trailer headquarters today. We're excited to have Mike and Nicole on from Nicole Johnson's Detour. Bring a Trailer headquarters is getting re-roofed, so huge apologies to you guys for any of the hammers that might come in during the episode. But thank you guys so much for coming out.
Dude, we're so excited to be here. I flew in this morning from Las Vegas. Mike, our producer director, flew in from San Diego so that we could be here because I was never going to turn down an opportunity to see the cars. I walk in, they're all under plastic, and the first thing I see is that R5 Turbo 2 sitting there.
Well, and you've driven one of those before from a regular BAT user. There's a lot of BAT Nicole Johnson crossover.
Yeah.
You guys have driven a lot of cars that either been on site or that are owned by power BAT users. But talk a little bit about driving. That was a bike peddler. Shout out to a bike peddler who we love, who's been a big champion and fan of the site for a long time and who I've met many times in person. Talk to us a little bit about driving that R5.
That was cool. So Eric is his name.
Yep.
He is so
Sorry, we call everyone by their
passionate.
username because we're so used to seeing them. Yeah.
I know, to you guys, it's username, it's at a bike peddler.
Yeah.
Eric Turnholm, he is so enthusiastic and he's a nerd. He's a total nerd. He knows everything there is to know about the history.
Yeah.
You know? And, and even when we were shooting with him, it was like, good grief, this guy talks forever, right?
Yeah.
But it was all really good stuff.
Yeah.
His enthusiasm so shines on camera.
It's infectious, his enthusiasm.
It is. It really is. He knows everything. So we drive that car and it's got this Widowmaker, reputation because it has such epic turbo lag. And where we shot the walk around and then where we took off to go drive, they're two different places, but I had driven around the property where we were walking around and talking technical stuff, and there's some hills and a little turn, and you got to go up a steep driveway. There is absolutely no power in first gear.
Yeah.
You're like, you cannot get up this little driveway. And then you wait, and then you wait, and then it builds up enough.
Get that spool going.
Oh, yes. And then whoop, you go up the hill. And I was like, we were just moving the car around. We shoot over 2 days usually, and the next day we were actually going to go drive the car. So that first day I'm maneuvering the car on that property, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be different and fun and terrifying.
Yeah.
It was all those things. It was great.
How do you come across, are you Mike, is it a Mike, Nicole, like joint together?
Like
how you
scouting
figure out,
and stuff?
Yeah, how do you scout him? How do you figure him out?
He scouts a lot. We both do. I mean, some of them he's come up with, and he'll throw to me, and I'll come, throw things to him. What's funny is, Mike is never on this side of the camera, and I'm like, be on this podcast. It'll be a lot of fun. And
well, you guys need to educate us on how to do things like pros, so I appreciate it, Mike.
But he wasn't on, he's got this private, not on Instagram or anything. I'm like, you got to be on Instagram, dude.
What?
It's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be on social media. I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like, you can find so much good stuff.
Yeah.
So
that's where you're scouting the cars for the most part?
We can find about events. We can find out about Cars and Coffee. I mean, there's news really that comes out of social media, which is no wonder that, 18-year-olds don't watch traditional news. They're getting it on social.
The show has changed. Like from 3 years ago when we first started, we were out begging, will you please let us do this? And now we have a little bit more notoriety. So now it's a little bit easier to knock down those doors.
Are people reaching out to you guys?
Yeah, we get that more now too.
Okay. Interesting.
So we're getting like
please
more
come
of
drive
that.
my car.
Yeah. So it's been a lot easier to get into places, I mean, we got to shoot with Magnus, which was incrable.
Totally. And drive the iconic car.
Right? I mean, talk about getting turned on to Porsches, right?
Right.
Like
it's
for
literally
a lifetime book right there.
Right.
I don't know if it's in frame or not.
I have that book. He gave me one too.
Yeah, totally.
And tell him about your dad. Tell him about your dad.
See, you got okay.
I got
so we're cutting Mike off.
Okay, Mike. What about my dad?
Tell him about how Porsches kind of came into was part of your DNA, and then you went to Magnus, and like everything sort of.
I mean, growing up, my stepdad was a Porsche Audi dealer down in Ventura.
Okay.
A manager.
What was the name of the dealership? My family's from Santa Barbara.
It was Masterson Porsche Audi.
Sure.
And that was, Ralph Masterson owned it. My dad was the general manager. They eventually went into business as car rental franchisees together. So I was always around cars. That was my stepdad, my other dad, biological dad, real dad. I say real, but I called them both dad. They're both my real dad.
Sure.
My real dad was a diesel mechanic, so I was always around cars.
Oh, it's in your blood,
yeah.
kind of, yeah.
And but my stepdad was more of a businessman, except he would bring Porsches home every night. And this is like,
just
they
like
got
off
married.
the lot? Is that like he was driving what was for sale, kind of?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he would just, I don't even remember if he owned a car. My mom went in to buy a car. I think she bought a 924 and went in and met him. And this was like 1980 that they got married. Now you guys know how old I am.
No.
I am 75. I look really good.
You look great.
I look great for 75.
Totally.
You're
anyway,
holding up great.
when they got, so that's the vintage of car. He was selling SCs. You know what I mean? Like that's the car that was
Did you like
brand
them
new.
at the time? Were they interesting to you at the time or not really?
It was just part of, you know how your past is just part of your past?
You didn't
it was
even think
normal.
about it. Yeah.
Things are normal when you're
Right.
6 years old.
Yep.
Things are normal, like, I don't know, it's just a Porsche, whatever.
Yeah.
I remember getting pulled over by, a cop, and he didn't get a ticket because the car was so cool. The cop just wanted to
talk
see
about
the car.
For sure.
So anyway, like I met Magnus, and of course everybody knows
Had you kind of
who he is.
lost interest in Porsches since before you met him?
Let me
You
back
obviously
up.
moved into trucks and everything.
We've got to
Yeah.
then go into what the name of the show is and why.
Yeah,
Then
okay.
you'll understand where I'm at when I meet Magnus.
Yeah.
It's called Nicole Johnson's Detour because I've done all kinds of things in
Right.
off-road. Monster trucks, King of the Hammers, rock crawling, a little bit of short course racing. I've done all kinds of stuff. That's where I ate, drank, slept, breathed off-road.
Yeah.
And when you're in off-road, you think your universe is this big, it's everything, until you really look at like a pie chart of the automotive world and you realize it's this tiny
Totally.
sliver, and you had no idea. So for many, many years, we had no idea that all of these things that we're exploring were out there.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm really late to the game. So we're calling it Nicole Johnson's Detour because I'm detouring from my past experiences and trying new things.
Yeah.
That's not to say I don't like off-road anymore, but like my interests
drive
have
cool trucks.
changed.
The tagline.
Yeah, we do stuff off-road too, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
My interest. So by the time I meet Magnus, I'm like, yeah, you're like into Porsches.
He's pretty into Porsches.
What an understatement of the decade,
totally.
right? You're kind of into Porsches.
When I interviewed him, he was like rattling off VINs. He's like, and that was, 00075, and this one's 0062. And I'm like, oh man, I can't.
The guy's an encyclopedia.
That's exactly
He's
right.
like
Yeah.
unbelievably, he's got such a cool presence, but you don't realize, or you do realize very quickly,
It's backed
this
up
guy's
by
an
real knowledge.
encyclopedia.
100%.
But he, like I was eating, drinking, sleeping, breathing off-road. That's what he's doing with Porsches.
Absolutely.
So when you're around him, you're like, oh my gosh. You leave looking on
You're ready.
BAT
Yeah.
and then going, oh, I can't afford one of those. So then I turned
You could afford a 924 maybe. I don't know if you've revisited 924.
So I turned to Craigslist. I said to my husband, I was like, oh man.
Your SC,
Let me tell
score
you
of the
something.
decade.
Hold on a
Score
minute.
of the decade.
This is a true story. This isn't to take away from the event of 9/11, but the first 9/11 I ever drove on the street was Magnus's on 9/11.
Wait, are you kidding me?
No,
Oh wow, interesting. The 277 car, the
Yes,
iconic one.
the
right,
first 9/11
That was
I ever
on
drove
9/11?
on the street.
Yeah. Oh man.
Now we had
Didn't
done an
end in tragedy,
episode.
though, thank
We had
God.
done an episode with a 911 that was more of a safari style,
Right.
an off-road one.
That was a great car.
And that was the year earlier. But everybody had been asking me to that point, what's the favorite car that you'd ever driven? And up until that point, I kept going back to Scott's car,
Right.
saying,
That's the Safari car.
yeah, it was.
That was a great car.
It had a G50 gearbox.
What did you guys like about it so much? I've never
The
driven one of those.
sound of
Yeah,
it.
okay.
I didn't know when I was interviewing him, I was like, I guess air-cooled cars kind of have a cult following. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then I got it.
Yeah.
I drove that car and I was like, oh, the way it breathes and
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
is so different. And so then fast forward to Magnus's car and it's twin plug. I mean, my gosh. Anyway, I leave the presence of whirlwind Tasmanian devil Magnus, Porsche,
Yeah.
going, I gotta buy a Porsche.
Yeah.
I can never afford a Porsche. And so I'm nerding out and I'm looking for months, just daydreaming, not getting any real work done, like everybody on BAT.
Absolutely.
Like everybody on BAT.
Yep.
And I said to my husband, the only way I'm ever gonna get we're never gonna afford a Porsche unless somebody's dumb enough to put it on Craigslist.
A Porsche, one.
Well, because we all know you're going to fetch more for your car on BAT because of the great photos and the way the ads are written and all the engagement. You're just not going to get that on Craigslist. So therefore, that was unfortunately where I was able to find a broken one.
That's great.
I found a broken one locally.
Little project.
And I picked it up 13 months ago. It just needed fuel lines. It's a 78 SC coupe.
Great.
Hard top. Like no sunroof.
Yeah.
It's
And
beautiful.
It's in petrol blue metallic.
Oh, great color.
Love that color.
Great
and it
color.
was filthy. And the photos were atrocious.
Yep.
Which is why I knew it had to be a scam.
Yeah.
Oh, it didn't run. And it didn't run.
It had to be a scam. I sent it to my husband and he's like, this is a scam. The first picture was like the odometer.
Yeah. This is the way people used to sell cars before
yes.
BAT, by the way.
And it just didn't have any information.
Yep.
And I had seen it a couple weeks earlier and blew it off. And I was like, let's just go look. Scored this car. Everything was legit. It was real. And it even had a certificate of authenticity.
Oh, amazing.
And it was a California car, so it only ever lived in California or Nevada. No rust.
Yep.
No rust anywhere, but it didn't run.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
So we got it running. It needed, fuel lines. We did all of the work ourselves. We built our own fuel lines.
Amazing.
And fuel, pump and fuel filters. And anyway, we got it running, and now it's just a fun car. We just rebuilt the gearbox.
Yeah, great.
New synchros. Close ratio gears 2, 3, and 4.
Revo shifter? Everyone puts a
no,
Revo?
I don't have a short shifter yet.
Okay.
That's great. So Bill Rader Motorsports, he's like the guy who builds these Porsche gearboxes. He rebuilt my gearbox, and we put a wave track limited slip.
Oh, great. Good stuff.
So I'm just barely getting that in the last month or so running.
And you drove it to Car Week, as you said?
Oh yeah, in August we went up to Monterey.
Uh-huh.
I have no air conditioning.
No.
And my husband couldn't take the time off work, so I soloed from Vegas to Monterey in August.
Well done.
Because with a roof rack.
You feel like you've accomplished something when you do that, yeah.
I have a red line roof rack, and I threw like bags that are for like kayaking on the roof.
No problems with the car along the way?
No.
Didn't have any issues?
I went with a broken
going
head
into
stud.
that trip. It was just, and you didn't tell me that.
I didn't tell anybody.
Okay.
Why didn't you have Mike there documenting it?
Because he is the biggest worrywart in the world.
Tell him what happened, and imagine you're being me. Imagine you're me.
Dude.
Tell him what happened.
Oh, like 36 hours before I'm supposed to leave. And I'm going to have it in the Bill Stein display at Works Reunion. Your Redline was generous enough to give me the roof rack. This is important. I had an Octune Craft.
I actually think I saw that. We were at Works Reunion.
Did you
I
see
saw
it
the car.
So I had an Octune Craft, like active muffler. I have all these sponsored parts. Everything is riding on me getting to
big event.
Sorry,
gotta be
he's
there.
Not on camera, and I'm looking at him because
that's okay because he's enjoying the hell out of it.
Big event.
That's our
Gotta
producer,
be
Chris,
there
behind the camera.
So a lot of pressure.
There's all this pressure for me to be there,
but this feels like an epic road video to me.
Well,
right?
I am not going
it's just about
to.
Deception.
I didn't want to wimp out and trailer it. I have a trailer.
No.
I got an aluminum trailer. I could easily trailer.
For driving. You made the right call.
I was like, we discovered a broken head stud about, I don't know, less than a day and a half before I was going to leave, and we're like, what do we do?
Option A: call your partner and
Dude,
tell him.
If I told
tell him.
you, no, my husband was like, so I called a friend who is.
Look at him, Nicole.
Listen. I can't say his name because his reputation would be on the line. But let's just say I called a friend who has worked in Porsches for 40 years.
Yep.
He has a shop, and I said, what do? We just found this broken head stud. And he goes, my professional opinion is, you need to stop and rebuild this motor.
Oh, no.
Let's call Mike and tell him what's going on.
This is why I don't tell him because he's
Let's
going
call Mike.
No, he's like my mom. He's so my mom. Yeah. So anyway, we're like, golly, this cannot be. We have worked so hard.
Producer, director, mom.
Right.
Slash
mom.
Security guard.
Big
security
brother,
guard.
mom. We talk too much. So my husband Frank and I are on the phone with our mechanic friend. He says, you need to rebuild the motor because you got to pull that broken stud out.
Yep.
And now you're pulling things out that you might as well do this and you might as well do that. And you got new seals and it's this
while
just
you're in
rabbit
there, you
hole.
might, totally. Yep.
It's what you want to hear.
And he goes,
This is like, it's
hold
totally,
on. This is what he said. He goes,
homes and cars.
He goes, but you didn't hear it from me. I'd run the snot out of it. Just drive it. I was like, all right, if he would personally just drive this car, that's what I'm going to do.
I won't name names, but I've heard people running, tens of thousands of miles.
So
on
you didn't hear it
Porsche
from me,
headstones.
but
Yep.
it had probably been broken for a long time.
Totally.
Because just by the way it looked and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm glad you didn't tell me. I would have flipped out.
That's why I don't
would've
tell him.
flipped out.
Because he was flying in so that we had business things to do there during the week.
I would have said, let's bring a helicopter and drop it in there with a helicopter.
Totally.
So
You would've said put it on the
my
trailer
other
at a
option
minimum.
was, well, I could, obviously we'd been driving around on this thing, but would a road trip in August be too much stress?
Yeah.
Coming from the desert and the heat and everything else, would it be too much stress? It's 1,200 miles round trip, that solo, during that whole event, And I could trailer it. That was just going to be super poser mode.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I represented to my sponsors that I'm going to drive this car.
Yeah.
So
you did.
And it was great. It made it all the way there and back.
And my
Did
husband
you do
could
one day the whole way from Vegas to
it's like
Monterey?
8 hours each way.
All the way
So-
there and back.
So
And it was hot.
It was hot. So I this is my husband. The difference, the opposite. This is my mom, and let me tell you about my husband. So my husband is like, well, call me if you break down.
Yep.
Have fun.
Good
That's
luck.
all he
Yeah,
said.
Totally. I love it.
I didn't even have.
He framed us on the last shoot.
He framed us. What do you mean?
On the last shoot we did with the Pinto. He framed us.
Oh, dude.
He framed his own wife.
You guys don't even know this because we haven't released the episode.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't see a Pinto on there.
That'll be our next episode.
Okay.
We shot a Pinto. Pintos are rad.
It's got to be modified, right? A hot rod. Of
It's a
some kind?
beautiful
It's
car.
a stock.
You believe I'm saying that?
It's
I'm
only
a little shocked by
it's
that.
modified within its
Although
like
people
stock
love
motor.
those motors, the 2.3 liter Pinto motor, which
It's
a lot
a
of people
stock motor with
interesting.
200,000 miles on
Wow.
it,
It's
and
a gorgeous little car. I can't believe I'm sitting here in
So-
this place saying that.
Yeah, they used to be a joke.
we drove down to
We saw them on BAT.
we
know.
drove down to Orange County to shoot that, and my Toyota Sequoia has 303,000 miles.
Great.
I like an old car. I don't want the new connectivity of the new stuff.
sure.
Right? I like my old car. I like my car.
Yes.
I like my car.
You like old cars?
I can tow with it. I can do some damage at Costco with it.
Yep.
And it's paid for. Like I like
Yep.
my car.
We don't want smart cars. We want dumb cars.
I have a dumb car.
I kind of have a screen cutoff for most of my cars, right? Like I want pre-screen. That's
Yeah.
like that's like an era
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it like
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, 2008.
A dumb car.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
like there's not even Bluetooth.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just right on the edge of
Yeah.
that. Anyway,
sure.
what even broke down? I forget what broke down. in my car.
Remember Kai was like, oh, I think this is like
No, not on the Dodge. My Sequoia was busted, and I had to take it to the local dealer.
No, get to the part about Frank.
So
and
I
then-
have to take my husband's 2006 with 300,000 miles. He has a Dodge Cummins 3500
Great
diesel,
truck. Great truck.
the four-door long bed. This thing is huge.
Love those trucks.
It's a big truck.
truck.
Yeah, they're great trucks.
And so I'm going to take that on to the shoot. So I drive it down to Orange County. And
Three
what does it do?
shoots. 3 shoots.
What does it do? The serpentine belt goes out, and I pull up to the guy's house. We're gonna shoot the Pinto, and he's already there, and he goes, "What is that noise?" And we're like getting out, and we pop the hood, we look underneath, and there's like shreds of something. Pick this up, and I'm like, "Oh, that's the belt."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Well,
had
the
to get it
pulley took a
fixed.
crap, and
Two
he,
cars
and he
broke
kind of
once.
knew what was going on. Was like, and then his reaction was, "We'll get it fixed."
He had
Are you
said
like,
to me,
talking to the Pinto owner at the same time? You're like,
"Oh,
trying to
you're in
fix
front of
the
his
whole thing?
house.
Oh, this is all
We go
happening.
to his
We're
mechanic.
shooting.
He's calling
That's
his
tough.
mechanic. He saved the day. He's calling
Oh,
his
that's
mechanic,
great.
and we were able to get it fixed that day and cash.
The Pinto
done,
guy saved the
cheap.
Dodge 3500 long bed.
I
Yeah.
love
gigantic.
that.
The-
But that must happen other time. I mean, you guys are driving modified cars. You're driving.
Oh,
like,
there's so many episodes that you'll never see because
Right.
the cars have broken.
broke down or had an
We've
issue.
filmed probably 5 things that'll never get released because the cars have broken.
Or
How do
things
the-
that we just didn't get
just is
done.
what it
'cause
is.
How do
cars-
the folks react to that? I mean, are they embarrassed about it, or it's like some of these cars? It's kind of inevitable
I
if
mean,
they're
one
so
time-
modified.
Dude, one time we had an alternator fall out of a car.
Like,
Yeah, but it was a custom bracket. You're not
Yeah, totally.
replacing you're not just going to AutoZone. It's like, we're done.
yeah,
We were through the walk around and halfway through the drive, but hadn't shot the thumbnail, hadn't shot, there was all this stuff that was missing that you couldn't just cobble the episode
Yeah.
together. And we drove all the way up to Northern California to do it. Oh, well,
yeah.
it is what it is.
Sometimes you get blanked like that, but honestly, we've had an equal or greater number of episodes where something hiccups on the car and the owner gets out and fixes it on the spot while we're
Yeah.
shooting.
Yeah.
And we keep going and it's great. So there's a lot more of those than there are, things just taking a crap and kind of leaving.
Because the owner's essentially always the builder when you guys are
not necessarily.
Well, like,
look, Eric
Bike
just
Peddler wasn't.
bought the
of course,
a bike peddler.
Yeah,
he just bought his car.
Yeah.
So we've had guys that are less mechanical that just have great collections, and we're gonna experience that. You know, obviously, if the guy built the car, he's the only guy that really knows.
Are you
car.
like evaluating the safety of it and the person as you're walking around?
Oh my gosh, you sound like my mother. You sound like my mother.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
We're all worried about you,
needs
Nicole.
to hear it.
Totally.
So listen,
that looks like a sketchy weld.
Here's another episode you'll never see. Can I at least say what kind of car it was?
Which one are you talking about? Yeah, you could just say about the car.
Okay. We won't name names.
Well,
generally,
it was a smart car.
Well, this was a safety
This is
thing.
an electric smart car that also it still had an electric motor.
Yeah.
And a Suzuki Gixxer motorcycle.
Super cool car.
So
like in the passenger seat?
No, all the way up in the front. It was chain driven and
whoa.
And so you could be quietly zooming around in electric and then fire up the motorcycle engine, bing, 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 take off. We saw this guy. We're like, we got to film this guy. This is great.
Cool car.
Super cool idea.
So we did all of the walk around, and then the next day we go to drive this car, and there were all these weird controls. Like you would control the throttle for the motorcycle engine on a little teeny dial.
Oh, interesting.
How terrifying. Something else on the steering wheel.
So the gas pedal's hooked up to the electric?
Oh my gosh. All these weird things that could go very wrong.
Right.
So I said, listen, you drive it first.
Right. Show me.
Because I don't know how to drive this car. And all my safety radar things are going bing, 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 bing in my head. And he drives the car. We get to the point where we're going to swap. And he's in his truck. You'll often see a dark gray.
The chase truck.
A
Toyota
Tacoma with a camper shell in the back. And that's his truck. And he's chasing. So we pull up to go swap. And I go, Mike, oh my gosh, I'm not driving this car.
Yeah.
This car's going to grenade. So every time he would get into the throttle, the entire shift, like the whole dash was wobbling. And I said, that chain, I could hear all the rattle from the chain is going to grenade, come through this dash, murder us, or flip the hood up and we'll crash into a car. Something horrific is going to happen.
Totally.
I'm not driving this car. And we sent the guy home. This one he drove from Arizona to San Diego. He brought it out and trailered it to shoot the episode. And we turned him around and sent him home.
But a great car and a great guy. We might end up actually doing that at some point.
I hate to say it, if he sees this or hears this, I'm so sorry, dude.
Yeah.
But I ultimately have to put my foot down because everybody's livelihood is at stake.
Totally.
So I'm not afraid to speak up.
Yeah.
If it's a piece of crap, I'll let you know.
Yeah. I mean,
in a very, very tactful way.
I don't mean to blow up your spot, but before we started recording, you were talking about like safety and not wanting to push things, and I think that's really wise, and that must come at least in part from your competition background, right? You're so comfortable with or aware of and knowledgeable of vehicles that are really kind of overbuilt for their job, right? Like rock crawlers and monster trucks.
I mean, I drove monster trucks for Monster Jam, and I did rock crawling competition.
But that's like everything's safe. There's not chains running open through, or no, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm curious where you honed your instincts on what's safe and what's not.
It was always the driver's responsibility to communicate to the crew what was happening. So if you could sense something was wrong and didn't say anything, how are they going to know?
Yeah.
So as the driver, you always have, the buck stops with you.
Sure.
They could tell me to do something, but it was ultimately my decision to drive up that obstacle or to stop the car and turn it off. And I feel like, go back to when you were 16 and your friends were pressuring you to do things, right? You think that you have to do what everybody's telling you. No. Please know that as the driver, you're the one that's ultimately in control of whether or not you do whatever with the car.
Yeah.
So you have to be very in tune with if something's wrong or not.
Yeah, and you spent years honing that ability to say, no, this isn't right or whatever.
The flip side is, if you know everything's gone through, you can trust your equipment.
Yeah.
If you know that thing was built to launch in the air 30 feet, do it. Go launch in the air.
Who are some of the builders or folks that you've driven their cars where you were like, oh, this person is dialed, or this person
A lot of the cars.
One of the cars I'm curious about is the MGB that got sawed in half.
Yeah.
That was on BAT. That car seemed, at least from our perspective, really well built.
And you guys posted that video. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, of course. Happy to.
It was on BAT because I suggested he put it on BAT.
Interesting. Oh, well, thanks to you.
When we met him, he said he was going to sell the car so that because he was done with it.
Yeah.
And he was retired and he was bored and he wants to build something else.
He mainly wanted to do the build, right? That was the impression we got from him.
He what?
He wanted to do the build. Like that was the thing that was exciting for him.
Years to do that.
Look, it's interesting.
70
Some people
years or something.
That's what they want to do. They just want to build the car and then.
Well, and he built every tool to build the car,
right?
Which is also like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
you built your own English wheel?
Yeah,
like,
amazing guy.
Wow,
amazing
I
guy.
bet.
He was Jim Stabe, awesome guy, huge supporter of the show. He's one of the guys that reached out to us.
Okay.
He's an older gentleman who isn't on social media.
Yep.
Who's going to know about his car unless you're just his neighbor or something, right? So he watched the show, reached out to us. We're like, oh my gosh, this guy literally took a Sawzall and cut this thing in half, widened it 11 inches.
Yep.
Who does that?
I mean,
and he lived
crazy.
10 miles from my house. I never heard of him.
10 miles from his house.
Never seen him.
It's hiding in the garage. There's
Yep.
so many treasures hiding in garages. Yep. That's probably a lesson you guys have learned.
So when I'm driving that car, I was like, good grief, it's solid. It's straight, it's solid. This guy did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
Drove pretty well?
Absolutely.
Oh,
And we love it when they've been driving it for a year or two because believe it or not, if you don't sort at least 2,000 miles on your car, 1,000, 2,000 miles, it's not dialed.
Yeah.
And sometimes something is just so hot, we want to get in there before anybody else gets word of it.
Totally.
And film it. And so we're, take some risks. But again, back to me to call the shots on if it's not going to be safe.
100%. 100%. And Mike's there worrying about all of
it,
right?
He's my mom. I swear.
That's my job.
Between him and my actual mom, my mom is 80. She's a widow and she lives with us. Moved her in a couple of years ago. I have a lot of people worrying about me.
Yeah. That's good.
Shout out right now to Georgia Crandall, the mom, who does a ton of work on our social media, a lot of work on the show. There's a lot of backgroundy super helpers, and she's one of them.
An 80-year-old woman.
Your son, right, Nicole?
Helps.
You mentioned.
Yep, my son helps us too.
He
comes
not
out
on the boom, unfortunately, today.
Yep, he'll hold the boom mic. He flies the drone.
He's great on our shoots. He's great on shoots.
He helps me when I need something. Hey, edit that reel for me. I'll just shoot him the content, and he'll help me sometimes too.
Yeah.
So he's great, and but it's we're small.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks we're huge. We're not.
We like it like that.
We have no bosses.
It's fun watching you guys operate. It's fun
Dude,
watching
can you believe how long we've been doing this?
No.
So we've been doing this. Our first episode was 4 years ago next month.
Talk about how did you guys? You have a background in cars, Mike? What's the connection story? How did you?
I was in the music business for a long time.
And
I used to come up here a lot, actually, to Frisco to see bands.
Did you ever go to the bottom of the hill right across the street?
I went there a billion times.
Yeah. Okay.
And
apparently there were some legendary shows there back in the day.
You know, I would probably be able to tell you I don't remember about half of it. So yeah, maybe in about 15 minutes I'll circle back to that. But so I got out of that business and started a video production company and did a lot of client work for about 10 years. And one of those clients things that we did was we did off-road. We shot Best in the Desert. We did a lot of score stuff and shot for trophy truck teams, Tisco, and did a lot of neat stuff in that universe. So I was in the off-roady scene.
Is that like helicopters and stuff?
Okay. Yeah, we shot the second and third King of the Hammers movies in 2009,
those
2010.
are so awesome.
It was crazy. Yeah. We had no idea what we were doing. There was no such. The GoPros hadn't even been invented yet.
I'm biting my tongue, not asking about King of the Hammers
there
the
was
whole
no,
time, Nicole.
There were no GoPros yet.
Yeah, totally.
So it was helicopters, and we had 20 people across the desert. Like I got people like missing overnight. Like where are they? They're in some canyon, 30 miles away with no. So it was that.
But I met you before that.
So we were doing desert racing stuff, and we got a call from a guy named Jeff Knoll, who was one of the co-creators of the King of the Hammers, the best guy. He said, "Hey, we're starting this race where we combine open desert racing and rock crawling." Yeah. And so I had met Nicole about a year before that first King of the Hammers movie. She was with the Red Bull rock crawling team. We got hired to shoot the Red Bull rock crawling team. And I go to this event at Cougar Buttes, and about 1,000 yards away, I see this squirrel, and I'm like, "Who's that?" And
squirrel? Am I the squirrel?
I had just gotten out.
Call me a squirrel.
I had just gotten out of the music business. I didn't want to do.
Hold on, he just started. This is awesome.
And I didn't want to get back into I developed.
Had you been into cars before, or is this all?
Yeah, I had a lot of cars when I was in music.
Because King of the Hammers is kind of a crazy thing to drop in on if you're not.
Well, and he grew up in El Cajon area, the
okay.
off-roading Mecca.
Yeah.
He grew up, next door to Ivan Stewart?
Yeah, like when I grew up, it was the beginning of all the desert racing kind of stuff. It was El Cajon. That was where a lot of, Chenoweth came out of there, and Jack and Wheels.
Baja racers.
All the Baja racers came out of there. I played soccer with Ivan Stewart's kid. It was just kind of part of like the scene. We didn't really realize that it would become what it did.
Yeah.
So we're doing. So I saw Nicole at this thing at the Scooter Beats. I thought she's great.
So what year was this? 2007.
Yeah.
It's been.
It was about 2007, and I really did not want to get back into like managing someone or helping someone get there, because I did a lot of that in music, developing artists that would go on and hopefully do well. Yeah. And so I really did not want to do that, and so I was like, oh, she's such a star, but I can't. I can't. I gotta. I want to just move to the mountains, and I don't want to talk about too much entertainment stuff anymore. And then I shot King of the Hammers 2 years. She was there both years, and I couldn't believe it. We had to pick. There were so many racers. We had to pick 12 or 20 that we were going to sort of kind of feature and follow them along the way in the movie and kind of see how they were doing along the way. Because we couldn't shoot. How are we going to shoot 80 racers, I think, at that time? And so Nicole was one of them, because there weren't that many females running. It was you. It was Cotton Rod. It was. There wasn't it was like maybe 5 of you.
There wasn't a lot.
5, and none of them finished, and she finished. And I'm like, who? So every time I turn around, I'm in the middle of the night, I'm at the finish line. I'm like, holy crap, here comes Nicole Johnson finishing that race. I couldn't believe it. I said, no, but that's more than half the people don't even finish.
Yeah, I know.
We shot up. If you watch those movies now, there's guys crying.
Oh, yeah.
They're guys, big, tough guys, you wouldn't believe it. Reduced to tears, dude. Yeah. Tears, like real tears. Yeah. And there's Nicole coming up. There she is, comes across the headlight. Got all the energy in the world to act like she just went to 7-Eleven.
I think our headlights were out.
No headlights.
We didn't have a rear drive shaft, so we were on front wheel drive only. It was night, and we had no headlights.
And I didn't know that until I was editing.
No lights. We were driving with no lights.
I didn't know that until I was editing it. I'm editing this movie. I'm like, who's this going down this canyon with no effing lights? And there it is, Nicole Johnson.
I was driving by Braille, and we had to get through. Oh, it was insane.
So that's how we met.
No headlights.
And we just kept talking and talking.
They were flickering.
Nicole kept kind of calling me for advicey stuff and manager consigliere kind of stuff. And then she got monstered around.
I used to pester him because I knew he had done this in the music industry. Right. So as something would come across a sponsor contract, oh my gosh, I have this opportunity. Who are you going to ask? I'm going to call Mike Badami and run this past him. So for many, many years, I would just introduce him as my manager, and he helped guide my career, and I never got locked into a crappy contract because of it.
Yes.
I never, ever signed a crappy contract because he had the ability to read all of that legal stuff, and I'm not stupid, but he, and align me with Lisa, and we together had a lot of, we were able to navigate those waters pretty well. So in 2010, I was at SEMA show. He had put a press kit together for me. When I was doing rock crawling and King of the Hammers, I got a lot of media. It's dominated by men. Yeah. And so they are naturally gravitated to photographing a female driver, which is great. I'm not going to not take the marketing if the opportunities are there. And so he helped put all this, is before social media, he helped put all of that together, magazine covers or whatever. And I had a DVD and I had a printed press kit that was pretty thick. Do you remember I had a sizzle reel on a DVD?
Here's my DVD.
Sizzle reel on the DVD.
I had a sizzle.
You had to have a DVD.
Sizzle reel.
That was.
And I'm walking around SEMA, but at this time, rock crawling was like not getting enough warm bodies there. And so sponsors couldn't get an ROI because there wasn't enough eyeballs and media that would come out of it. And I knew I had to move into short course racing. Lucas Oil was hosting a series called the Lucas Oil short course series. And I dabbled in that a little bit.
Trophy trucks or stadium trucks? What's the
vehicle? It's like
dune buggies.
It's well, no, you would take something like that, but re-gear it shorter for a closed track.
But bodywork or no bodywork on it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, fiberglass. Everything's tube frame. So you'd have bleachers. Think of Supercross but with trucks and buggies, and they're jumping and they're going around a course.
Right, okay.
And it's televised. So I knew that I had to move into something that was going to give a return on investment to sponsors. So that's expensive. I had a little 1600, Type 1 VW motor, whatever.
Like a traditional, like sandrail type thing with the engine.
Just a little single buggy. We called it a single buggy because it was a single seat, little itty bitty buggy.
Right.
And that was a very competitive class because there was just no horsepower at all.
Totally.
So these guys got really good.
Was that fun to drive, that car?
The ergonomics of that car really beat you up, and I wanted more power.
Yeah,
short course is cool to watch, though.
It's fun, but even my rock buggy had 350 horsepower in an Ecotec, in a turbo Ecotec.
Sure.
So it was different, but it was an inexpensive way to get some experience in that.
Sure.
And I wanted to move into not all the classes were televised. I'm going to have to find $250,000. I don't have the money, so I'm walking around SEMA carrying the press kit he had made for me and my DVD.
Yeah,
and that's when I met Dennis Anderson, who was the guy who started and created Gravedigger.
Yeah.
And so when
you bum rushed him.
I totally bum rushed him.
I was going to ask how that happened. He recognized you, or you came up holding DVDs?
He was with his son, Ryan. Ryan Anderson is today a phenomenal driver. I don't even think he was old enough to compete at the time. I don't know. I don't think he was technically competing at the time.
I think he just started gotten into his truck, which was a badass truck.
Yeah, I can't quite remember.
You remember that little truck?
Anyway, I saw Dennis because he's wearing his Gravedigger shirt. And he's just like the Mario Andretti of monster trucks, right? And he's like, I don't know, 10 feet in front of me, and I'm on the phone with my mom. It's the end of the day, and everybody's leaving SEMA at 5. An hour earlier, he has a line an hour long at the MagnaFlow booth because he's Dennis Anderson.
Yeah, sure.
If I'm ever going to say hello, he's right in front of me, and there's no crowds.
Yeah.
So I go, Mom, I gotta go. Oh my gosh. Hi, you're Dennis Anderson. And I stuck my hand out and said, I'm Nicole Johnson. And his son goes, you're that rock crawler chick.
Oh man, amazing.
1 in a trillion, right?
I was like, how do you even know that,
like,
Ryan?
Because
I didn't even know who
or something like that.
Well, no, I mean, at that point, it's on pirate4x4.com. We were using, bulletin boards to share our content. It was, I competed in the 2000s.
Yeah.
There wasn't social media yet. A little bit of Facebook, right?
But there was I remember the King of the Hammers
that wasn't out
there was
yet.
Like a time.
Well, no. That was 2010. Yes.
Yeah,
I had raced it 3 years by then.
I remember
2008,
reading about
9,
it
and
on
10.
track. People got real excited about it.
Yes,
that was a year.
No. I'd already raced it 3 years by
blew
then.
it up.
But it was like you would see on YouTube somebody would post their own cell phone video of something.
Right. Yes.
Or you would see something on a bulletin board. Maybe on Facebook. This was when MySpace was tanking.
Totally.
Right. I'm so old. So anyway. I don't know. I just said, you don't know. I didn't know who he was. He hadn't really been a name. He wasn't known to everybody at that time. But he goes, I follow that sport. And I'm like, dude, this is just a little grassroots sport. Anyway, long story short is within 2 weeks of meeting them, I was in North Carolina at Dennis's property test driving in a Gravedigger truck.
Whoa.
Because they introduced me to the bosses and I had a DVD.
Yep.
And I had
to have the sizzle reel, Mike.
I was able to give the next day. Ryan introduced me at SEMA to the bosses. I gave them the DVD, and they called me Monday, which is right after, as soon as SEMA ended. SEMA's Tuesday through Friday. By Monday, I'm getting a call. Can you come to North Carolina to test drive a monster truck? You know what I'm thinking? Sweet,
yes.
Free trip to North Carolina to drive a truck.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking career path.
Right.
I'm just like, yeah, but I've never even been around one. Are you going to show me how to operate it? No problem. We'll show you how to operate it. So they just run you through a series of drills and tests for 2 days, and then they offered me a job. We go.
Jeez.
We go from I've never driven a truck to by the end of the second day going diagonal off the big jump.
Ugh, man, that's wild.
And
these trucks are no joke, man.
They're 1,500 horsepower. Yeah. They've got a Merlin 540 big block.
Is it like a nitro?
Blown,
it's like a nitro funny car motor kind
It's methanol.
Or it's methanol. Okay.
It's methanol.
It's a
big
dragster,
blower.
dude.
Right. Dragster motor. Right.
I mean,
yeah.
It's
it's got a big blower on it, and it's just a beast.
Yeah.
And so, but they weigh, you know, people go, oh, 1,500 horsepower. Well, let's put it in perspective. It weighs 10,000 pounds.
Totally.
So it's not 1,500 horsepower in like an NSX or something.
But you're still throwing around 10,000 pounds is my point. And it's as tall as this building.
And the tires are 66 inches tall by 43 inches wide by 20, maybe 22 inch wheel. I'm trying to remember how big the wheels were.
First time
20, I can't remember the wheel size. I'm so sorry. But yeah, 66 by 43. It's pretty big.
First time I went backstage at one of these monster jams, I went to one of these things. One of the security guys walks up to me and he goes, see those tires that are over there standing right there? Don't walk around the tires because if it falls over, it'll kill you.
Yeah.
They're 700 pounds.
One tire
per
falls
wheel,
over, it kills you.
A wheel tire combo is 700 pounds.
Unbelievable.
And that's light. Some of the guys who were the independent guys that were running at the time were using, I mean, these are farm like equipment tires, and they'll be 1,000-pound combination because the lugs are huge, like deep lugs, like this tall.
The scale is just like.
And what they would do is they'd turn them on a lathe to shave them down.
Interesting.
And reduce weight.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. You could
but
turn
that's
them
for
on a lathe.
the big money people, right?
Before they had their BKT tire sponsorship, which was then a spec tire, and those were the lighter ones. So 700 pounds on a wheel and tire was the light version. You should see what a mechanic looks like pushing that in a parking lot. He looks like a dung beetle.
I can only imagine. And you've got to use some kind of a crane or a lift to put them on, right?
Dung beetle.
You just feel like you're in a clown world.
Pushing your big ball of dung. That's what the mechanic looks like.
It just feels like a clown world. It feels like a fake, like a cartoon.
No,
they're that big.
They had a little, their floor jacks were hydraulic and they kind of were just, you know, not jimmy rigged, but like that was like what they had created to do the work. But we would put them in a semi and they'd have skinny transport tires. You could put 2 trucks in a semi with all the huge wheel tire combos up in the front of the semi, and then have these skinny little transport tires. They look so ridiculous on transport. It's hilarious.
How quickly did you get comfortable in something like that? Did that take quite a bit of learning? I mean, you said that you had a job within 2 days.
That's a really interesting question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. So I don't know if you're ever like, oh yeah, I'm totally comfortable. You're always just out of control.
Yeah, okay.
You can't see anything.
Yeah.
You're just taking
Don't
lucky
have windows
bounces.
in the bottom so that when you're up on the wheel.
Well, there's Lexan right down here. So you sit in the center of the chassis.
Yeah, okay.
No, you're not in a motorcycle stand-up condition. That is one guy named Frank Scattini. There's one guy.
Oh, I didn't even know
He never
about
ran
that.
Monster Jam, but I get this all the time. Do you stand up like you're driving a motorcycle? No, that's one guy.
Okay.
I know him. He's nuts. We would sit in... Who does that?
Well, but you're in a singular,
No, so you sit in the center of the chassis and you have a rigid aluminum seat like they would use at NASCAR, and it's custom molded to your body. So your hips, your ribs, your shoulders, all of these custom measurements, or you'll be dead.
Yeah.
So
so you had no experience, and the question was how many?
How until I got comfortable.
Right. So how many races did you win in the beginning?
Oh geez. He just wants to talk.
I'm just saying it's a stat. He's asking for stats.
Let me just tell you, I test drove for 2 days. If you think you got that car figured out, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You drive it for years with 3-minute increments in a weekend, and you're never gonna get comfortable in that car. You're just gonna do the best you can.
Right.
You're just gonna hop in and adapt. That is what all I'm doing with this show. Hop in and adapt as quick as you can. Yeah. And that's probably why I got the job, because with no experience at all, they just said to do something. They said, okay, just when I drop my arm, we're just going to do a whole shot. You're going to stand on the brake, come up on the torque converter, pretend I'm a green light. I'm going to drop my arm, and you go and stop in 20 feet. Just go 20 feet. Ready? Go. Wah! And that's it. Well, you know how many guys lift off the throttle because it scares the crap out of you to do that with 1,500 horsepower. Yeah. And there's a lot of torque squat. Yeah. So you could see right away if they can't progress to step 2, which is now there's a little dirt mound. Right. You do the same thing.
Because you need that moment, you need that weight transfer to do some of the
Well, it's
stuff,
just going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just torque squat. Everything is going to those rear tires.
You
know, it's just huge. It's a big dragster. So anyway, you could tell by watching someone if they would
lift off. Yeah.
Oh no, you're not. You can't do it. So anyway, not to say
they're hesitating. Yeah.
Yeah, you hesitate. You got to commit to that throttle. So anyway, made that pass, and they're like, oh, now we're going to have a little dirt mound about this big and do the exact same thing, but that dirt's like maybe 10 feet in front of the car. When I drop my arm, you go. So what do you think happens?
I mean,
floored in 10 feet in
right.
front of you, there's a bump of dirt.
You're
just airborne.
Totally.
But it looks
You're
great.
just immediately airborne. Okay. Anyway.
That was your second time you.
That was on day one
That's
of
amazing.
test driving. So by the end of 2 days.
They're testing your instincts to see if you can do
By
it
the
right
end of
over
2
it.
days, again, we were going diagonal off of a big jump.
Yeah.
Diagonal is different than straight because you're all 4 tires. You're landing like this.
Yeah.
So they said, hey, do you want the job? I said, yes. And then 6 weeks later was my very first show. And I had no driving in between then.
And then what
I was
happened?
going to ask how often you get to practice. Maybe
Well, I
not
asked
that
them
often. Yeah.
When am I going to get to practice again?
You practice at the event.
They said, oh no, your first show is
That's where
the
you learn how
next
to
time
do it.
you're going to
Yeah,
drive this
totally.
truck.
Oh man.
Cool, guys.
We're in a huge field in North Carolina with no barriers.
Yeah. And so there's a bunch. I was telling you before we started recording, I watched an indoor Monster Jam here just right across the way in a basketball arena. So explain to listeners and everyone a little bit about the different, it's kind of a different course, a different format almost every time.
Let me
right?
fast forward to the driver's meeting for that very first show.
Right.
And this is open
That's
field.
the first question I had.
My
That's the first question I
perspective.
had.
6 weeks ago, I drove something for 2 days in a field with no barriers.
Right.
What is in my mind about like the risk level? You just drive all over the place, right? Now we're in Trenton, New Jersey, and the world's tiniest arena.
Yeah.
And then when you go into an arena that plays hockey, they have hockey, the Dashers.
It's like this big.
Which are expensive electronic boards that have advertisements on them. And so here we are in the, sometimes they would get rid of those. It just depended on what the building had as an agenda. We didn't always.
You're kind of the victim of your venue, right? Yeah.
Right. It's the venue that would make those calls. So we would sit in our driver's meeting and be told whether or not the Dashers were going to be gone, or which would give us more space, or if we were within the confines. And that's the very smallest configuration we drive in. And it's Nicole's first show. Previously only 2 days in a field. So they say, hey, the Dashers are expensive. They're like $5,000 if you just tap it with your tire. So don't hit a Dasher. What do you think Nicole did on her first show?
Straight into it.
Oh, I hit it. I hit a Dasher. Yeah. What did you expect? Okay,
yeah, totally.
Dasher. But I also won racing.
Ah, there you go. There you go.
So, I don't know. We had just single elimination and in an arena with just straight line drag racing. Basically, cut a good light, which is that whole same thing. When I drop my arm, go. Come up on the torque converter. There's just a red light, green light, and there's 2 trucks. And at the time we had crushed cars, something from a junkyard, painted all vibrant colors, right? And it just, maybe a van in between them. It'd be like a car, van, car. We call it a van stack, car, van, car, or whatever. And the idea is there's a start line, and then the finish line is like maybe just right afterwards. You might even be in the air just right afterwards. You're going 30 feet. I don't know. And when the green light goes, it's just drag race each other. So I beat everybody that night. It was single elimination.
Amazing.
I just, so you didn't get round. I beat Gravedigger. It wasn't Dennis driving. We had multiple drivers of multiple trucks.
People care about the.
But he was my teammate, and I beat him.
That's great.
And then I wasn't supposed to be great. Apparently, that's not cool because.
Oh, interesting.
Listen, little kids like to buy the Gravedigger merch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's a loser now.
Yeah.
But then let me fast forward a little bit. But then the game is to try to get out of the small hockey ring and get into the big giant arena.
Listen, you didn't have any control over where you were going to be. We got your schedule, and my first year, I only did the arenas. I did win racing 9 times in that 12 weeks.
How many events roughly are you driving in a year like that? Dozens, or is it a dozen times?
At the time, it was the first quarter of the year. We'd go on right after New Year's.
Okay.
Until the end of March. No, you had 12 weekends, 11, 12 weekends. Right. And if you're doing arenas, you're doing a Friday night, 2 Saturday shows. If it was a 3-day weekend like MLK, then we would also do a Sunday show. Okay. So typically 3 shows in a weekend. Times 12, maybe 36 shows, whatever. So I won racing 9 times in that 12-week window, which was the most amount of wins by a rookie or a female in a single season, albeit straight line drag racing.
Yeah, okay.
So I got a good light, I guess. I don't know.
Have you done any actual drag racing? Because it seems like maybe you have good reaction times.
I had done a sand drag race one time when a guy was like, hey, drive my car. It was a friend of my dad's. Hey, drive my car. Okay. And I placed third at the Dan Chittenden Nationals. Totally out of nowhere, just showed up and placed third
in a national. Well, maybe Mike's too protective. I would love.
I don't know.
Use the Detour show. Come on,
we'll see.
I don't know. Just look at the light and just go.
Cutting the light is hard.
I don't know.
I want to do Lynn's dragster. If we ever do dragster, I want to do the dragster.
I don't know. So anyway, enough about all that stuff.
Yeah, no,
I could go on for 17 hours.
I know we could talk completely.
And your viewer retention will go down.
No,
I'll keep talking.
But at the end of the 6 years, you end up in the Scooby-Doo truck, the Warner Brothers Scooby-Doo truck.
So I guess where he was wanting me to say,
I've seen you go upside down. I've seen all kinds of clips of you.
So where he was wanting to say is, then I was given an opportunity to drive in stadiums. And now you have a little bit more freedom to do bigger tricks and bigger things. Though our drivers' meetings were, again, hey, listen, you know who you are if you've been given the green light to do a backflip. If you're not somebody who's been given a green light, we will use the RII, which is the remote ignition interrupter. They go bink and shut you off. Cut you up. For safety reasons, we had to run an RII.
Because if you're not ready to do it.
Correct. Well, they're just, the cars would run away and kill somebody. So for Monster Jam was fantastic with
external stuff.
And most likely you're going to trash it.
A big monster truck's too big to have like an easy external.
No, the whole reason why you couldn't do it was because it devalued the entertainment quality of the 3 backflips they were already going to see.
Oh, right.
If
so you can't just go rogue.
Did a backflip, yawn.
Right. You can't go rogue.
Where's the double backflip? Where's the front flip, which is a thing I think they do now.
Sure. I mean, the tricks are so amazing. Everybody who's doing it now, all the girls, females who are doing it now, oh my gosh, everybody's so good at it.
These kids today.
Are you still plugged into the world at all? You know those folks?
I have a couple of friends that I keep up with, but it's easier for me to put my blinders on because I'm not much of a spectator.
Totally.
I'm not a spectator.
But one of the things about monster trucks and Monster Jam is I took I have 3 kids and I took them and they don't even like cars that much. They freaking loved it. And all the other fans there were like going nuts. So you must have started doing press and stuff, right? In fact, I've seen interviews of you. Now you're in front of cameras.
What's really great about Monster Jam is
Mike is doing his job.
You come out of it with press training, media training.
Right.
And I was on I did all the morning media we would get assigned.
Like the little local stations or whatever.
Go to the local news channel, go to the radio station. Sometimes they would come to us. So I have a lot of experience being in the media.
Did you enjoy it, or were you like this right to begin with? Or did you
I've always been like this is who I am.
You were born to do this.
Maybe.
It was great.
Yeah.
Overall, it was great.
And
that's what you were thinking way back at King of the Hammers.
Before that, remember, I had a press kit.
Yeah.
So even before that, I have been in front of the camera for 20 years, and it's just, I'm not afraid of it. It's comfortable for me. I've never even been afraid of public speaking. I've been through all of this, I've also been able to address a crowd of 60,000 people on a microphone, talking to them. Like if you won, I don't know, racing or donuts or whatever, right? You get out of your truck and talk to the crowd. None of it has ever intimidated me. So I don't know. I'm just very comfortable. It doesn't scare me.
So is that where the impetus or the idea comes for the YouTube show?
We
or how does that transition happen?
So you got to talk about how they were just not letting us do it.
Well, they didn't want to let us do it. Well, Monster Jam was first of all, Monster Jam was a great opportunity. That 6 years, what occurred in that 6 years for Nicole Johnson's, sort of stock and trade was incredible. I mean, there's a lot of things. I didn't grow up watching monster trucks. I mean, I'm so old. For me, was the original Bigfoot truck.
Absolutely.
To me, that was a monster.
I remember that. That was more like a real pickup truck.
Yeah, that was kind of, and then it blew up and became, gigantic.
Bob Chandler, I met that guy.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
So I mean, just to from the first time I met Nicole, to do a show like this, it's a huge commitment. We did 4 episodes and thought we're going to shoot 4 of these and see if anybody cares. Because the odds are, with everything on YouTube, the answer will probably be no. But there was also
Go back, though, to the Monster Jam days, and we thought of this idea.
In the original Monster Jam, Nicole is getting to a point where she could carry a show. Originally, I was thinking, and we were thinking, oh, maybe she needs to be with someone else, a co-host show, the two of them together.
But this was always supposed to be a YouTube show. That was
I'm just saying the process of my thinking.
You gotta let me tell the beginning, and then I'll throw it to you. We're like almost like a married couple here, right?
You are. I've been watching your dynamic all the time. I just snorted again.
Going back
this is great.
So we knew we wanted to do a show inside of Monster Jam. We knew we had the opportunity there to really do something special. Take Nicole, put her in a show. This was when everything was still very terrestrial TV. There was Motor Trend. There wasn't a lot of like
a reality show.
There wasn't a lot on YouTube yet. There was no Rumble. Like there was nobody doing things really on their own.
I was being contacted all the time by producers.
Yeah, okay.
So we had
they wanted to do a monster truck driving mom show. They wanted to have they wanted to come and watch me flipping pancakes, taking my kids to school, and then
making chocolate
getting
cookies.
on a plane, making cookies. Where are they, by the way?
So we couldn't
She's
get
upstairs eating them all.
So we couldn't get traction with Monster Jam. We couldn't get them to work with us to motivate and get that show on the air. There was just a lot of complications.
And you would have needed their approval.
This was people approaching me. To be honest, it wasn't. It was that I was getting emailed by people. Was that you?
Oh, excuse me.
I was getting emailed by people,
worse and worse.
real producers in Hollywood who were producing. Was that you?
I know.
Was that you?
Well, we did a deal with a company that had developed Wayne Carini's show. We did a first look with them, and they did a shopping deal with us.
A shopping deal, yeah.
So, like, we were doing that, kind of circulating around, trying to do it. Then we went, and so we just could never do the Monster Jam show that we wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was just too logistically hard with them to get that done for a lot of the right and wrong reasons on both sides. And so then we went to France, actually. Nicole got invited to do the 70th, right?
The 70th anniversary of the Jeep, which was in 2011.
And she calls me up. She calls
Normandy,
yes,
World War II.
Liberating
France.
I got an opportunity from a French group that was putting on an annual event. It just so happened to also coincide with the 70th anniversary of the Jeep. They wanted me to come as a guest of honor. It was all these guys from all over Europe were bringing their Jeeps to this event. And they were like, wanted a promotional video. So why not, dude? Mike. So Mike and I went to France, drove Jeeps.
Did you off-road a World War II era Jeep as part of that?
No, I drove it was just like a rock crawler, and we were exploring.
There was rock crawling. It was like a big,
I have a second channel, which is old, and then sometimes I dump things on there. Anyway, it's on that other channel. It's on there, called Wheelin' in France or something like that. Anyway,
I'd love to see Nicole up over the dunes at Normandy in a 1944 Jeep.
It was the event and sort of the vibing out this event.
Yeah. Really. And so when we were there shooting that, I don't know that Nicole knew this at the time. Maybe you did. But I was really thinking like, okay, I think she could do a show. I think we could do a show. And she'd be a great producer, and she's great on camera. As long as we don't let it be scripted, it's going to be a great show. And so that was kind of the test. We shot that video. She did it all by herself. So she carried that whole video all by herself. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a 10 out of 10. She's really, really, really good. We spent a little bit of time having some more meetings about having it be a co-hosted show with a good friend of hers.
We want to say who that is?
Yeah, it was Jessie.
Jessie Combs? Do you know who Jessie Combs is? She was a dear friend, and at the time we chatted about her co-hosting some sort of an adventure with us.
Yeah, the two of them together.
There was a while where we chatted about that.
So we actually met with Roger Norman, who owned Score at that time, about that. We had a really weird meeting with him, and that didn't happen. But I had been in music for a long time, and I was used to shopping things for years before, when nobody cares, and then they do, and then you sell 6 million records, right? Sure. So I was used to
patience is a virtue.
Because you just know. And she was great, so we shot, I don't know, that was it. And then we just said, so COVID hit, that's what it was, right?
Yeah, so years went by. I retired at the end of 2016. My last show was December of 2016.
Right.
And I retired from Monster Jam. So fast forward to COVID in that time frame, I'm just like raising my kids and doing mom things.
Done, kind of out.
Remodeling the house, and was doing no motorsports at all.
Out of the car world.
Out of the car world.
Okay.
And he, in the meantime, was filming in hospitals up until COVID, right?
Yeah, we had a big client in San Diego. We were doing all these real world documentaries, shooting surgeries, and people with their heads falling off, and all this. I saw some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And so I did 10 years of that. COVID hit, everything shuts down for me. There's all these complications and problems with COVID for me. And
you also don't want to be in hospitals at that time.
Well, I didn't mind. We actually were one of the only crews in the country that,
interesting.
that would go in and shoot.
Okay.
We shot inside those wards right in February of 2020.
Wild.
Yeah, my crew went in there and we shot everything.
That's a whole podcast in and of itself.
Yep.
Wild.
Yeah, we weren't afraid. We went in there.
Crazy.
And, And so we did all that, and then so that ended, and I was sitting there with my thumb up my ass. Sorry. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? I gotta do something. I'm a squirrel. I can't just sit around. And I called Nicole and we started the show, and here we are.
So October of 2020. If you actually go on our YouTube channel and when you click on the little weird about area, it'll say when the channel was created, joined. It'll say October 20th of 2020. That was about a week after he called me and said, you know that show we'd always talked about doing way back in the day?
So did you have a blueprint for what you wanted to
we
do?
had talked about this years ago.
We had 2 shows we were going to do.
Well, the reality is Monster Jam didn't want to do the monster truck show that some of the Hollywood producers that were reaching out to me had suggested. For whatever they just didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Which would have not been a great show.
Therefore, we created in our own minds, what could we do on our own? That's when we were like, hey, maybe it's involving Jesse Combs. Like maybe, we created this show years earlier, shelved the idea, life goes on, COVID hits, hey.
But was it Quest to drive everything? Was that always the idea?
It was a lot of off-road stuff, and then it morphed into, wait a minute, we could just do this with everything.
Totally.
Because I said to him one day,
I've
always wanted to drive everything.
I asked you.
Is this who I am?
I asked you. I said that day, what were you like when you were a kid? What was in your heart when you were a little kid?
Yep.
And you said, I want to drive everything.
When I was a kid.
And I said, that's the show.
I had a go-kart. My sister had a Pinto at 6 years old. I drove a Pinto.
Pinto connections.
Yep.
Full circle.
So I had a go-kart when I was 5. Right. My sister had a Pinto, and she let me drive it down a back alley when I was 6. I was probably sitting on her lap. I don't remember.
Ventura?
Yeah. And then my dad, my real dad had a Chevy C10. I don't know what year it was, late 70s. Granny low. I mean, I'm 12 driving this thing.
I didn't know he had a C10. You never told me that.
Yeah, he did. And I
love
was
C10s.
I was driving that thing around the neighborhood. I was 12 years old. Granny low. You can't stall it.
Right.
So, and we would still drive the go-karts, and somebody would call the cops, and we'd quickly put them away at Natural. Like we're not the ones driving the go-karts on the street. And so, when I was in high school, I was always like, let me drive your car.
Yeah.
Let me drive your car. I had a friend with
You're one of those. I know those people.
Oh, I dated this boy whose parents had, an Alfa Romeo. And I just thought that was really cool. And I was just constantly pestering all my friends to let me drive their car.
But you had broad interests. You were like almost anything.
Everything.
Yeah.
I always wanted to drive everything.
Yeah.
But I never knew until he was asking me, and I said I always wanted to drive everything. Yeah. And then and then my husband. You can't tell this story without Frank.
This show doesn't go without Frank. I mean,
so I was 19 when I got married. I've been married 31 years.
He's also a car guy, right?
Oh yeah.
He was a lifeguard with a tan in Ventura, with big curly hair and a 72 Toyota FJ40 with a Chevy 350 in it and a Muncie. The same exact rock crusher in the Nova was in the Land Cruiser.
You still have that gearbox?
No, we sold it. I like the sound of a Muncie, though.
Yeah, totally.
Straight cut gears.
Yeah.
So he had a freight train horn on that thing. So I was 19 years old. You push the button and 5 horns. And
total Central California lifeguard lifestyle.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
I grew up in San Luis Obispo, just a little north of there.
Yeah.
My family's from Santa Barbara. I love that part of the state.
Yep. So that was his daily driver. I mean, it was only a 20-year-old car at the time, right? Sure. It wasn't even that old. And I thought he was so cute. He didn't have a dime to his name, but he had a Land Cruiser and curly hair.
Yeah.
So I asked him, can I drive it? That's what I asked him, if I could drive it. And he's like, the only girl that's ever driven my car is my mom.
Ironic. That's what the show is now.
To this day,
totally.
The only girl who's ever driven his car to this day is his mom and me.
And how many people have said that in the show to you? That's incredible.
Yeah, almost everybody we get they've never sat in the passenger seat ever.
Oh yeah, that's disconcerting.
That's probably half of our episodes, at least half.
The people freaking out
It's
about
more
sitting in
than
their
half.
passenger seat.
They've never
Yeah.
been.
And then people want to give them a hard time that they look nervous. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
They're sitting in their own passenger seat for the
Yeah.
first time.
because you're also seeing it in real time. We don't fake any of the show. The
Right.
show is all 98% first
Yeah,
takes.
so if I mess up, you see it.
Yeah.
So when she gets in the car for the first time, she's really getting in the car for the first time. It's not a
Yeah.
fake first time. It's a
Yeah.
real first time.
So
You know?
The
I mean,
nice thing about it being everything is the sky's the limit. You have an
I've
awful lot-
moved a car in a
Boat-
parking
I mean,
lot
boats,
before.
you can
know,
drive
I've
all kinds of
moved
stuff.
a car around and okay, I get it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, sometimes we'll do pre-drives on something that's absolutely so bat-esque crazy
Yeah.
that like no human would ever, but that's pretty rare. I mean,
Yeah.
what Scotty's car, was Scotty like that? I mean, some of these things are so intergalactically bizarre, Nicole.
Yeah.
I mean, Duke's car was crazy.
Yeah.
Remember I was like arguing about, I don't want to do the drag
So
at the at
remember,
night. I'm totally scared
he's
it's going to blow up.
Like my mom in
Yeah.
the safety, concerned, worry world.
Yes,
And so
100%.
all the time he's constantly freaking out on.
Well, you are driving a lot of builds. Another guy who's been on
Thank
BT
you.
is Mano. Is that his name?
Mono.
Guy with Mono. Yeah.
It's mono modified. He calls his company modified
Yeah.
because it's modified.
He's sold some cars on
Mono.
BT. Chris, you remember him? We've encountered him down at the SoCal Van Nuys BMW show.
Yeah.
In fact, he had some cars, I think, that were live on BAT, and he was next to our tent. But you drove a really wild one, 500 or 600 horsepower.
Two of 'em.
What a
2002.
Yeah.
great guy. He's a great
Yep,
guy.
two of them. That
He's
was a square
motor
tail light.
builder extraordinaire.
That was a
He did
74
lot
square
of-
tail light.
Right.
And he
It's a
put
lot of horsepower.
an E36 in it.
2002.
He moved the firewall 7 inches back, big oilless turbo, and he could dial it. Of
Yeah.
course, you have to dial down the boost so
Yeah.
that the motor doesn't grenade. So it was dialed down, but it had the potential to get up to 600 horsepower.
Yeah.
It was beautiful to drive.
You
It was
like that one?
amazing. Oh yeah. I also drove a roundy. You know
Yeah.
what that is? Little
Yes,
round
round
tail
taillights.
lights. Was that
Absolutely.
a 72? I'm trying to remember now.
Yep.
And
Be early
it
70s
had
or
an
late 60s.
E30 in it, 4-banger, right?
E30,
It was out of an E30. It was a.
There's 4 cylinders and 6 cylinders.
Now don't quiz me. I know
No, it's
the
okay.
S46 and M52.
I
I
know.
get them all confused.
I know.
So anyway, a little 4-cylinder with a turbo, still hoot to drive.
Yep.
So I drove them, and they were just wildly
He does
different.
put 6 cylinders in 2002s, though. I'm
Yep.
pretty sure one of the ones that.
That was the
he-
second one I drove. Yep,
Yeah, okay.
that was the
Yeah,
one
yeah.
with the big beast.
That was a 6.
That was a
Yeah.
6-cylinder.
Yeah.
It just needed so much more space.
Yeah, of
So-
course.
Which is bigger and smoother in weird
Oh,
way.
everything was smooth.
It was like the
smooth.
BMW 6s
the
were
Cobra
best.
comparison, right?
Yeah.
You think it's
They
going to be
were
one way,
different.
but it's the other.
Yeah, a 427 and a 289 are very, very different, by the way,
Totally.
in the Cobra world.
Totally.
But I would have thought the 427 would be but I found the 289
I
to
liked
be way
the
more.
289 better.
Why?
Small block, it revs now.
Yeah.
That's what all the
It's
comp,
not
all the early comp
gluggy.
cars were 289. I mean,
I mean-
those are the ones I like too because they're
Yes.
narrower and I like them aesthetically.
Look,
better
I'm
personally.
not driving it like a professional 427 race car driver
Right,
is
sure.
going to drive a
Yes.
427.
Yes,
That's not what I'm doing. I'm just going to go experience it on the road and be respectful of his car. And
totally.
he let me, Lynn Park let me take a 1 of 5 FIA Cobra to Willow Springs and drive it on the track.
Amazing.
And that was a 289. And it's just like, as you're downshifting and you're blipping the throttle, it does it so
It just sounds like a
quickly.
fighter plane. It
Yeah.
sounds like
It's
like a
so
P-50. It just sounds like a fighter plane.
Intoxicating.
There's a reason that those cars are so beloved, and you got a
So
little dose of the magic.
intoxicating.
Yeah.
But I have now driven 6 of his originals.
Amazing.
2 we did 2 episodes with the guy, but privately I've also had an opportunity to drive some of his cars. So
You've also driven a lot of EVs. You were talking about that
no,
crazy
just
smart
one.
car. I thought
Don't
you'd
say.
driven-
Don't ever
I
make
thought
us.
you've driven quite a few. I
Don't
was looking
ever-
at the
Nicole, how do you
Ever.
feel about electrics?
Oh
Oh
my-
yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh,
She's
if
fine
you
with it as long as
ever-
there's a Hayabusa
if
motor
you
or a Gixxer
ever-
motor like that
Yeah,
goes along
exactly.
with it.
Listen, that didn't count because it had a
It had the
Gixxer
Gixxer
attached.
motor with it.
If you ever, in the same sentence, say Nicole Johnson's driven a lot of EVs, I'm just pulling my eyeballs out and I'm.
But wait, there
I'm
are
dying.
certainly there's at least
I
one
have
on this.
driven one on the show.
But it was like a mod of people.
Yeah.
are
It
Yeah,
was
it was a cool
Chris
car.
EV
Ashton,
builds.
Ruffian Cars. It was Chris Ashton's
Really cool car.
1977 or 8, 9. I can't remember. It was a wide-bodied race car, Porsche 911, and he couldn't get it registered in the state. It had gone through a mudslide. It was too new to have a race engine.
What a
pass
story,
smog.
that car. Oh my God.
Plus, it had been through a horrific mudslide, and he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw an EV in it. They threw Tremec electric GT. They threw a Tesla motor in there, and it's great.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, listen, if I'm gonna do an electric, that's a really cool car.
Kind of like a hot rod a little bit, right?
It was.
Like it's in
It
the hot
was
rodding,
like driving an RC car.
Totally.
And Chris pointed that out to me. He's like, listen, we were kids. It was super rad. Nobody got upset that you had to drive your electric RC car.
Yep.
Now you're in it.
Totally.
You're
Plus, it's a
right.
badass car. The history of that car
And it
particularly
goes.
is
It
like...
looks awesome, too.
That car had a
Yeah.
history,
Yep.
for sure.
Yep.
But I was like, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
It was fun.
What's on the hit list? If you can drive everything, does that mean you can drive boats? You can drive tanks?
Oh,
Like, what are you
gosh.
going to drive?
Gosh, my good friend Aaron Hagar, we did a Pinsgauer episode with Aaron.
Oh, yes, I
He's
saw that one. Yeah,
Sammy
that's great.
Hagar's
Yeah.
son. He's such a dear,
That was a lot
sweet
of
friend.
fun.
He
That was a
said
great couple days.
we were talking the other day, and he's like, the guy with the shop next door to me has this cool fighter plane. You should go. You should do
Totally.
that.
Yeah.
And he's sending me pictures, and I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
I
totally.
mean, maybe. I wanted.
You can drive all kinds of stuff, that's for sure.
The sky is limit. You know, the cool concept of this show is we have no ceiling.
Totally.
We will never run out of content.
No
It's
way.
impossible
Yeah.
that I will exhaust every car that there
Yeah,
is on
no
the
way.
planet. We would really like to travel.
Yeah.
We envision this show being Anthony Bourdain's No Reservation meets UK Top Gear.
Yeah.
But we got to go around the world. We could find culture.
Totally.
And that was what our France
Because
event.
there's different kinds of car cultures in different places,
Yes,
right?
when we went to
New
France.
Zealand and Australia have like these really active, like
Oh.
modifying scene. They do different stuff,
Incredible.
right?
Right.
Dude, our
We
hit
have a
list,
huge audience
like
in,
our
in
worldwide
Australia.
Oh, that's
scouting
interesting.
list. Our scouting list now for Europe is incredible. The cars we want to hit over there, top secret. But things that we
you
want
can't
to
say
get
it.
to.
Can you speak broadly about the kind of stuff you guys are interested in
Oh,
chasing down?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking at like I'm sitting here now for everybody watching this
you're-
for anybody watching this podcast. We're sitting here now in the amazing headquarters, and right on the other side of this is a Porsche and an amazing
Yeah.
5 Series BMW. We never know what it's going to be, and when it hits us, we both will hit each other right away and say, "Oh my God, yes." There's ones that she brings to the table that I don't like. There's ones I bring to the table that she doesn't like, and if it doesn't pass the test, we don't do it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We don't care if there's a sponsorship or some political reason. We don't care. That's what the good thing about being around bosses now.
Yeah, I bet.
So we really, as far as the hit list, really got to get out to the eastern seaboard of the United States. There's some really crazy, amazing stuff we want to do there. We have
There's
some
a lot of things in Austin and Texas that we
Texas,
want to
we're
go
gonna
do.
go.
The
We think
list is
this
getting
year
longer and longer, right?
We
It's
think
almost
this year
like-
we're gonna do. I think this year what you can look forward to for fans is we're gonna try to do a run to the Northwest and try to do a run to Texas, Oklahoma.
Oh, where you do like a couple at the same.
Yeah, we
You
try to
have
shoot-
to.
Yeah, okay,
You-
yeah.
For
For
grouping,
economy
yeah.
reasons,
Right,
you have
sure.
to. Yeah.
So we want to do I'd love to see Nicole like in a Formula One car. I'd love to
Oh,
see
man.
her in all kinds of things.
I-
My job is to put her in the most.
Yes, I have a
Safe but interesting.
Listen, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but 2 times now, an individual who has a vintage Formula One has said to me, "You're welcome to drive my vintage Formula One."
I mean, how do you say no to that, right?
Now, I don't want to jinx myself,
Yeah, right, totally.
but if that ever happens, he's going to die. He's going to just die. I won't have a producer director anymore. He's going to just keel over and die because
Yeah.
he called
Yeah.
4 years ago. He's like, if you ever get in a Formula One,
A
you'll-"
vintage Formula
He goes,
One.
yeah. He goes, you'll get in one. I'm like, nah. So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, you mentioned a tank. Like we've actually talked.
Totally.
Oh, I would
Military
love to drive a
vehicles.
tank.
Yeah,
I'll tell
yeah.
you something. Let me ask you
Would
something
love to
crazy.
drive a
Let me
tank.
ask the both of you something crazy. Okay. Well, this is a focus group
Okay.
because I've talked to you a little bit about this, but we haven't talked about this a lot yet. I mentioned it to you. So I got a call like right before Christmas from a guy who will remain anonymous for right now. This guy calls me, sends me an email initially before he called me. Sends me an email that's like, I don't know, 4 pages long. The gist of it is, do you want to drive a nuclear submarine?
Heck yes. Heck yes is the answer.
So I'm now.
Those. I think they have a little steering wheel.
So now I'm trying to explore.
I'm gonna wear a Love Boat outfit and everything.
I'm trying to explore the possibility, and this is like a 6-month process to even get vetted to walk onto the sub.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you think your TSA pre-check means something? It doesn't.
I was watching
all of a sudden.
I will tell you, if you want focus group, I was doing submarine content a week or two ago with my kids, where I wish I could remember his name. He's a big science YouTuber. He flew in a helicopter out to the polar ice cap, and a sub came up through the ice, and he got on it and went down. And the video that we watched was just about cooking.
Oh, that's like
pizza
Red
on a
October.
submarine, and
That's like Hunt for Red October when he drops them off out in the middle of nowhere on the sub. Oh my God.
Anyway, my 4-year-old and my 14-year-old loved it. So yes, thumbs up on submarine content.
I don't know. Do you think that I don't know. Would anybody watch it?
These are the things
I would watch that.
We have to sit here as producers and discuss. Creatively, we're always going to just do whatever we want.
Yeah.
And we don't care what anybody else thinks.
If it's rad, we'll do it.
If it's rad, we'll go do it, right?
Rad is a word from the 80s.
It's back again.
Yeah.
We are very much like, you try to have this philosophy that we don't care if anybody's going to ever watch it. He's classic. Every time we're 30 minutes from releasing an episode, we've seen it. Nobody else has seen it. He's like, I don't care if 5 people see this episode. This is the best one we've ever done. I don't care if 5 people see it.
I don't.
Well, we ultimately do care if 5 people see it, because it's really hard to carry on.
But I would say,
but that's so the problem. We creatively are trying to pick things that we like, and we are trying not to be influenced by what somebody tells us to like.
Totally.
We want to do what we like, because if you're creating art that you like, maybe people can appreciate that, right? I mean, there's authenticity.
Chris and I know a thing or two about building a successful brand. We've always stuck to our core beliefs and tenets, and this is the way we do it, and this is the way it feels right.
If you're passionate about it, maybe that enthusiasm will bring people along 100%. To be on your bandwagon team, whatever. However, the realities are you're facing algorithms.
I know.
It's YouTube.
Yep.
It's wonderful. You can post it for free. But listen, do you know how important a thumbnail is?
Oh, it's vital.
It is. There are only 2 bits of data that viewer gets to decide before they've clicked. Mm-hmm. The title and the thumbnail. You could have the best video on the planet. If you don't have a great title and thumbnail, nobody's going to click on it. Yep. And the algorithm is going to assume it's a terrible video, and it won't put it in front of new eyeballs or even your existing eyeballs. I realized that sounded like my own eyeballs.
No, but I mean,
but you see what I'm saying? It's like a magazine rack. If you're in a grocery store, old school, and there's magazines, that cover's got to get your attention, or the best article in the world isn't going to be read.
Yeah.
So we do have to think about that too creatively, and sometimes our thumbnails rock. Sometimes they're, I wish they were better, but that is a huge key.
Of course.
That is a huge key. That's a magic. That's so magic.
But so I know you guys, and I totally understand it, do what you want, do what excites you, and trust that will then get folks excited. But I know, Nicole, to some extent, you are thinking about your audience. We were talking about it beforehand, right? Yeah. And you were talking about how exciting it is when folks recognize you or come up to you, or you were telling me an anecdote about SEMA and somebody coming up and saying how meaningful it is for you when you hear from fans about how they've been inspired. I don't want to blow up your spot, but you were telling a story about a guy who's doing a build with his daughter because inspired by your channel.
2 SEMAs ago, we met a gentleman, and he came over and was excited to meet me, and he said, your show is the reason why my 14-year-old daughter and I are building her a car. Oh my gosh, I started getting watery eyes, and before you know it, Mike's like, what's going on over there? Because he could see that I was crying, so he wasn't sure if this guy was offending me or something. Yeah. And Mike comes over, I'm like, oh, his daughter, they're building a car together.
I'm going up to this guy yo, bro, what's up?
So he's coming over like a bodyguard, to beat this guy up.
All 5'6" of me. I'm like, hey, dude.
He's thinking that this guy has said something offensive to me to make me cry.
Yeah.
I'm just getting emotional hearing it. Are you kidding me? We impacted your lives that much that you're now building a car together. So I fill Mike in, and before you know it, all 3 of us are crying.
Yeah.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
And Nicole, that's not a one-off. We've had bizarre, a lot of those. We were out at the Audrain in November. I don't know when that was. October.
That's in Newport, Rhode Island.
You know,
we did a BAT alumni event 2 years ago at that same thing in October.
What a great place!
Rained out.
What a great place!
So
Beautiful.
I was a Concord judge this year.
Awesome.
It was some
great event, great people.
Totally.
If you're going to Concord, that's the place to be. I'm not trying to hype these guys. They're good friends of ours.
Yeah.
It's a good scene over there, man.
Totally.
It's everything you want at Concord, but it's not stiff and uptight and some of the negative stuff that goes with the free shoo nature.
No, when ours rained out, people were driving their Duesenbergs and stuff in the rain, through the rain. Like it was like real.
Oh, these guys don't
car
care.
Stuff. Yeah,
they just go out. Like we're like, oh, it's kind of misting. I'm staying inside. They don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was real deal.
Yeah. They're cool. Where were you going with that?
I forgot what I was saying.
We were talking about. Well, I was asking. This was my fault. I was asking you guys about how inspirational it must be.
Oh, so we're at
when
the odd
fans
drain.
and audience.
So we're out with all the tattoos.
So we're out of the odd drain. There's one guy that comes up. You know, we have the fans that come up and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm totally into you. You're oh my." But then you forget the other guy. There's another guy walks up and walks up to Nicole. He says, "Hey, I need to say something." And we're like, oh, maybe he's going to say, I hate this freaking show. Yeah. You're the worst thing ever. But he goes, and he's standing with another guy. The other guy is the nuclear submarine guy.
Oh, that's how the nuclear submarine.
That's how he found me.
Okay.
So this guy said, I have to tell you something. And this is like a tall guy, like in the middle of the day. And he starts crying. And I'm like, what's going on, man? And he's like, it's hard for me to even tell this story. But he goes, he says, you remind me so much of my mom when I watched the show. And my mom is the one who turned me on to cars. And when I watch you, I feel like I'm watching my mom.
Amazing.
And he starts bawling, you know, and I'm like, oh my God. So we hug these guys, you know? And so there's like an emotional like tendon that runs through this show that I don't understand or can't explain.
What you guys were hoping for. You mentioned Anthony Bourdain before, right? That's what you're hoping for, right? Like this, like there's a authenticity and
I don't know. He just turns the camera on.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. He just points and shoots and we talk and we're not scripted and we're just having a conversation and then we go drive it.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the show.
I think the minute we start doing a show, it's over.
Yeah.
Like we're not really doing a show.
Right.
We're just
we're
you know, for me, I was desperately missing a lot of the shows that I thought were incredible. You know, a lot of these shows were going away or they were becoming syndicated and getting mashed out and kind of vanillaized and ruined in syndication. Like I loved all the original shows. You know, I grew up watching Barry Maguire and Dennis Gage and all those first round of shows. I mean, Detour is just very close to what Dennis Gage was doing.
Yeah.
You know, he was going on location and talking to people about their stories. And then we saw all the American shows come through, American Hot Rod, American Shopper. We all went through all that. And then Velocity Network became huge. Yep. And we got to see all those shows. You take UK Top, you know, Wheeler Dealers was coming through. The original one. Before it got split apart. And everybody now is wondering, where's Ed? But all those shows were kind of gone. Or they'd been syndicated. It seemed like there was just something missing. And there sure as hell wasn't a lot of strong, powerful females who could like rule the camera the way Nicole does. Yeah. Like she's just a natural. Yeah. You know, we don't have to like do a whole lot of these episodes and there's no scripting. Yeah. We tell the people when we show up, you know, people when we're going to shoot with them, they say, what should I think about? What should I be thinking about saying and stuff? Just don't think about any of it. Forget all of it. Don't think about anything. And when we show up, you're just going to talk to this human about your creation. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. It just works.
And by the way,
but I also like he's really good on the stuff.
Man, the production value is so good.
On the production side of things. Like he never toots his own horn. Like 7 Emmys from his prior work with clients, he's never going to sit here and tell you, but I will because I'm proud of his accomplishments and that I'm teamed with somebody that's this darn smart and experienced. It would not be what it is without this guy. It is such a team effort. It is such a team effort. The show could not exist without me. The show could not exist without him. It is that like tight. And
Frank and your mom and
no. See, there he goes. There he goes.
See how I do it?
I love watching your guys.
See how I do it?
There he
really
goes.
Fun. I'm glad we dragged
He's
Mike onto
really
camera.
good, and he will never toot his own horn. But I'm telling you that we're always like, dang, Mike did really good on this.
Yeah.
You know, he's the guy that makes it look so good.
Well, that's an important part of
There
it.
have been several people
We're trying.
who have asked, hey, I'm doing videos too, but what do you do to your audio? Like, how come your cars sound so good? I'm like,
It's all AI.
Secret.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's not.
Watch out, they're going to try to hire him.
No. It's because this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's tough stuff.
And we do an audio mix and color grading. It's very over-engineered for YouTube.
Well, it looks fantastic.
You know, when they were making,
He's trying to wrap it up. I can tell. That's the key.
when they were making Star Trek, I was on the flight here. Actually, I was reading this book on the making of Star Trek, right? The original series, and all the stuff they went through to try to convince the studios, and they rejected the first pilot. Nobody liked it. And they hated Spock, and all these things that happened. You know, so there's just an element of like being able to, and they said they just had to keep going, like, you know. And honestly, you guys bring a trailer. It's pretty crazy the ride you've been on.
Oh, and it's the same kind of thing. It's always moving forward, right? Like it's the same kind of thing, right? You like can't stop. Chris and I, it's like, you know, there's 1,000 auctions live 24/7. Sometimes it keeps you up at night. So it is a similar kind of thing, right?
But the ride to where you are now.
Right now, I think there's only about 800, but last year our peak was around 1,000. Yeah, I know. That's comments and people saying things 24, but that's true of a YouTube channel too. Yeah.
But the space you occupy now, there is no other. I mean,
I tell people all the time to check you guys out. Like I know a couple of guys in Vegas with some cool cars. You know, I got a friend who's got a 65 Mustang.
We sell those.
Yeah, you know, with 50,000 miles on it, which isn't a lot.
Yep.
And he's wondering where to sell it.
Bring a trailer, man. Bringatrailer.com.
Yep.
Nicole could sense I was trying to wrap up, which is true. That's good. That's a media trained person. But before I do that, I actually do want to give you guys an opportunity. Like, what else should people know? What do they need to know about you guys individually, about co-producers / hosts, or the man behind the camera, or just about the channel in general?
Jeez, my least favorite food is mushrooms.
Oh gosh.
My most favorite is chocolate. That's what you need to know.
Your cookie recipe is secret.
I do have cookies upstairs.
Yeah.
It's my signature move.
Yeah.
Hey, if all this fails, I'm opening up
a backup plan.
Cookie store in the mall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What else should folks know, Mike? Other than it was hard to drag you in front of the camera, but I'm glad we did it.
I think follow your heart and don't compromise, and do everything you can to maintain your vision and make your sponsors your partners, and do the best you can for them, because they're taking a chance on you as a creator. Yeah. So if you can do justice for everybody and be nice.
Be nice that's words to live by.
I mean, one of the things it was hard for me to learn along the way, you know. I mean, I've always been nice, but sometimes, I don't know, just be nice. In production, there's a lot of things that go wrong. I mean, you know, talking about Star Trek, they no money, and, you know, until they really had a budget, and everybody has to do 10 jobs, and there's a lot of stress. You know, when you watch these episodes, you got to remember what's going on. This is somebody who's never been in a car before. Yep. A lot of these cars now are getting to be very, very expensive. They're very fast, and they can be very dangerous. She's also doing an interview. She's driving a car she's never been in. I'm not trying to prop you up.
On a road I'm usually not familiar with.
On a road she hasn't been on. So there's just a lot going on for people to kind of just sit there and watch and go, oh, cool. You know, and I think people sense that with Nicole. When they're watching an episode, you kind of get inside of it. This show's produced very much that way. The walk around is very matter of fact. You know, it's very matter of fact. When she gets in the car, it becomes very Alice in Wonderland and very overproduced. And there's a lot going on with the soundtrack, and everything kind of goes into a crazy dreamlike state. So just don't compromise. And when people tell you, oh, you can't do it, or nobody's going to watch it, or doesn't care, I've been hearing that my whole life.
I will tell you that years ago, in probably 2007, a dear friend of mine said, I after hearing that I said, I want to make a living in motorsports, he said, it can't be done. Well, I am still on this quest to prove it can be done. I have done it in the past with, you know, my off-road stuff, but if somebody tells you you can't do it, just turn that into fuel to go do it if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, every time we ran into that, I'm sure you guys went through that
still wants to wrap the show.
with this business. Every time somebody tells you no, you double down.
Yeah.
I just double down.
Yeah.
Because they're telling you no, there's a lot of reasons why.
Yeah.
You guys have been on a great ride. You should be very proud of what you've done.
Yeah.
I'd say the same thing right back to you guys.
Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate you coming out. It was so awesome to have you here in person, too.
I'm just nerding out. We're staring at a 912.
Well, let's go keep talking about cars. Like, we can keep doing that for a little bit. We can go
Thank you, man.
Thank you guys for doing
They're
this. I
awesome.
really appreciate you.